Well, another big topic this week was the racist abuse that Vini Jr. said he received during Real Madrid's game at Benfica in the Champions League. Here's what Jose Mourinho had to say after. He said, "It happens in so many stadiums, always the same person. Something isn't right. I told Vinicius on the pitch, you score an otherworldly goal. Why do you celebrate like this?" All right, well, here's what Real Madrid manager Álvaro Arbeloa had to say in Friday's presser.
Cada uno, evidentemente, es libre de dar su opinión. Yo estoy dando la mía. Creo que Vinícius Jr marcó un auténtico golazo, un golazo en un campo pues, fenomenal, fantástico, y que celebró un gol, como hemos visto cientos y cientos y cientos de veces celebrar a muchos futbolistas a lo largo de la historia. Y muchos futbolistas sin importar su condición ni color de piel. Y vuelvo a repetirme, no podemos poner a la víctima como provocador, no lo vamos a permitir. Yo en mi caso creo que es injustificable, creo que lo que está haciendo dentro del campo de fútbol desde que yo estoy aquí pues está siendo absolutamente sensacional, brillante, está decidiendo partidos, está marcando auténticos golazos, está echando el equipo a la espalda. Es un jugador que pues ya no solo es desequilibrante, sino que quiere asumir esa responsabilidad dentro del equipo. Y luego es un chico que no tiene miedo, ¿no? Y que es capaz de ser tan valiente, de vivir situaciones como las que vivió el otro día y ser capaz de volver a un terreno de juego.
All right, our Stewart Robson is still with us, but Alex Kirkland is joining us for this chat. Alex, you were at that game, so what's been the reaction like in Spain since then?
Yeah, lots of reaction to what Jose Mourinho said. As you mentioned, I was sat in that press conference and couldn't believe what I was hearing from Mourinho and how sort of deeply misguided it was, his reaction after the game. Arbeloa said it there in his news conference today. Whatever Vinicius Jr.'s celebration was like after scoring that fantastic goal, there is no justification. Nothing justifies racist abuse. And so there are a lot of, I think, kind of outrage and surprise at the way that Mourinho reacted. It's been developments really the last few days. We've had UEFA launching their investigation. We've had Real Madrid providing a dossier to UEFA of the available evidence they have to contribute to that investigation. Of course, there will be limits to what is available because, as we all know, the alleged abuse happened with the player covering his mouth with his shirt. The latest developments today, some sources telling ESPN that the player Gianluca Prestianni has already given evidence to UEFA, his version of the story. And what those sources have told ESPN quite remarkably is that his version of events is that he says he used a homophobic slur rather than a racist slur. That is his, and I use quotation marks, his defense in this case. So we're waiting for a conclusion. And of course, the sort of the deadline in a way is that we've got the second leg next week at the Bernabeu, and there's already a lot of talk about just what is the atmosphere going to be like going into that game. Now, Jose Mourinho, of course, will not be involved because he was sent off in the second half of the first leg, so he won't be involved at the Bernabeu, so the crowd won't get the chance to react or to sort of give their verdict on Mourinho, who of course is to many a legend at Real Madrid. But Prestianni, at least as far as we know right now, is expected to be involved in the Benfica squad, and so of course all eyes will be on, if he is indeed involved in the squad and in the team, if he plays, just how the Bernabeu reacts to him as well.
And Alex, just to follow up on those new developments that you just mentioned for us, that Prestianni has said in his evidence that he submitted to UEFA. So what kind of punishment are we looking at if he does get punished at all?
Yeah, well, interestingly, you take a look at UEFA's disciplinary regulations on this, and they are very clear. When it talks about racism, homophobia, any form of discrimination, essentially, the punishment is the same. UEFA talk about something like a 10-game ban or similar in those circumstances. And that would be the same whether indeed it was, in this case, racist abuse or homophobic abuse. So if that has indeed been Prestianni's defense, as ESPN has been told, that wouldn't necessarily make a difference in terms of the outcome, in terms of the punishment. Now, like I say, we're awaiting the conclusion of that inquiry and then for the findings of that inquiry to be made public. But potentially, yeah, like I say, we're talking about something like a 10-game ban or something similar. So potentially really quite I think it's hard to say what is an appropriate punishment for conduct like this, but certainly UEFA in recent years have started to take this kind of thing more seriously.
As they should, so we can finally come out of the dark ages. But Alex, just following up on what Arbeloa had to say, because he has spoken so highly of Vini Jr., and it's true that we have seen an improvement in Vini Jr.'s form since he came in comparison to Xabi's tenure.
Yeah, absolutely. We know that there was a big kind of breakdown in the relationship between Vinícius Jr. and Xabi Alonso that started last summer, pretty much straight away after Alonso arrived. There was a feeling from Vini Jr. and from his camp that Alonso, didn't fully kind of believe in him and back him. And we saw Alonso putting Vini on the bench in a number of games in different competitions, in La Liga, in the Champions League, even when available, when fully fit, something that never happened before. Arbeloa has taken a completely different approach. We've seen sort of the number one priority of Arbeloa since taking the job has been to get the key players back on side, make sure they're happy. And the number one, really, top of his list was to get Vinícius Jr. back and on form. And we're starting to see that. It's been a difficult season for him. Like I say, he was sort of in and out of the team under Arbeloa, hasn't always been delivering. But you look at the last few weeks, he's been scoring goals consistently, game after game. I think it's something like 3 games in a row in the games that he's been available that he scored. He scored that incredible goal against Benfica. He scored that great goal in the Spanish Supercopa against Barcelona as well. So it feels like he's getting back to being the player that we know that he can be for Real Madrid. And so far, at least in that sense, I think Arbeloa has been successful in terms of getting Vini back on board.
All right, well, elsewhere now, let's shift focus to Real Madrid's rivals, Barcelona, because another Barca player is criticizing referees. Stevie's already chuckling after Rafinha did it earlier this week. Eric Garcia is speaking out on the La Liga refereeing. This is what he had to say. There are situations that we cannot control right now. We feel like the referees can disallow every goal we score. If they want to disallow it, they will do it. These are games in which we have entered a bit of frustration and we must reset. We know that decisions against us can come and we have to remain focused. All right, Alex. Well, this is a tale as old as time, whether it's Real Madrid or Barcelona picking fights with referees. So here we go again.
Yeah, basically nobody's happy with referees in La Liga, are they? Absolutely nobody. Look, it's true, in fairness to Eric Garcia, there have been 1 or 2 decisions in Barcelona games, in other games too, but in Barca games in the last few weeks that have been difficult to understand. You think about that big loss they suffered on Monday night against Girona, a game that meant that Barca dropped behind Madrid in the title race. And the decision not to disallow the key Girona goal was hard to understand, was baffling. To go beyond that, and I think Garcia takes it a little bit further and talks about a more sort of generalised pattern and talks about referees wanting to take goals off of Barcelona. That's going much too far, of course. But yes, there are 1 or 2 big decisions in key games that have gone against them. But really, to me, this is just an expression of frustration at what's happened with Barcelona. The fact they have somehow, despite the kind of dysfunctional season that Real Madrid are having, they've slipped behind Madrid, albeit maybe temporarily, in the title race. They haven't been getting the results. They had that thumping defeat to Atletico Madrid in the Copa del Rey. They had the loss to Girona and Barca. They're not looking like the team that they were earlier in the season, and certainly not last season. I think that is really the context of this. It's frustration at what's going on with the team. There have been reports this week about Hansi Flick and the players kind of getting together for a team meeting to try and resolve some of these issues. There are other problems as well. They've been without Pedri. He's coming back, expected to play some part in their game this weekend. They were without Rafinha. He came back in the Girona game. So key players, both to what they do with and without the ball, haven't been there. So I think that's a big part of it as well. But there's no doubt, they're not happy about the way things are going right now. And I think what Garcia says there is just a bit of frustration at that more than anything.
Stevie, you were chuckling before I even read what Eric Garcia had to say.
Well, when you're losing, it carries no weight. A, when you're losing, B, when you're playing horribly and you deserve to get beat. There's no way you can turn around and start blaming referees. Listen, if you're creating chances and not getting penalties and decisions go against you and you're losing games that way, then there's not a person that ever kicked the ball is going to have a problem with it. But when you're just rotten, you're not producing, and then you want to turn around and stick all the blame on the referee, then nobody's going to listen to a word you say. Not a word.
Robbo, even if you're frustrated, you would never just blame the referees, would you?
Well, you can't be, and I'm not sure what game Alex was watching when he said the goal should have been disallowed, Girona's second goal. It was never a foul, he won the ball. Anyway, yes, you don't blame the referee, you don't keep having a go and making excuses. At the moment, Barcelona have got all their defensive structure wrong. Even though they're trying to play this high line, they're doing it badly. If you play it well and you get the timing right, it's a good policy. But if you get it all wrong and they're making some bad errors, you're going to get beaten. You're going to give away many chances. And if you're not playing quite so well in the front areas, which they haven't done in the last couple of weeks, particularly against Girona, where I thought they were fairly poor. They didn't even dominate the game as they normally do. You're going to get beaten, and it's nothing to do with the referee. Let me get it clear. Barcelona and Real Madrid get most of the decisions go their way over the course of a season because they're the teams that matter. So it's absolute rubbish from Eric Garcia.
All right, well, let's remind you how things are looking in the La Liga standings, specifically in the top half. Remember, Barcelona dropped points last time around, so they find themselves playing second fiddle to Real Madrid, who are at the top of the table with 60 points, 2 points clear. Real Madrid play Osasuna away this weekend, while Barcelona will be trying to make up against Levante. Alex, surely no more points dropped this weekend with these fixtures.
I think Barcelona, the one big thing in their favour is that game they've got right there, which is Levante at home. That's exactly the kind of game against the second bottom team in the table they would want to have to try and turn this form around. Real Madrid away at Osasuna is tricky. El Sadar is basically the most hostile stadium for Real Madrid to go and play at anywhere in Spain. Always has been. It's not an easy place for them. Osasuna at home, you'd give them half a chance. I think Madrid probably the form they're in. Like I say, Arbeloa are getting it together. Signs that they're starting to become a more reliable team. We saw that, I think, in the first 50 minutes against Benfica before Vini's goal and everything that happened after that. I'd expect Madrid to get the win. I'd expect Barca to get the win against Levante as well. So, yeah, I think certainly the Barca fixture is one they could really do with right now. So it's fallen rather kindly for them.
Robbo, how do you see these two games going?
Yeah, I think both teams will win. Real Madrid are playing much better than they were several weeks ago. They've got their confidence. They're getting some good results. As Alex said, some of their key players are playing much better now. Jude Bellingham's out the team, which I don't think is a bad thing for them because they've got better shape to their side. And I think Barcelona, despite not playing particularly well in the last 2 or 3 weeks, will beat Levante. I think that it's an odds-on win.